Hello, everybody. My name is Carlea Stremme, and in affiliation with Westchester University, I was able to participate in the study abroad program to Copenhagen, Denmark. This program was 5 weeks, and my peers and I were immersed in Danish culture. And as a culminating activity, we decided to create an interactive exhibit in a small campus gallery for our community. And we would later, through topics of sustainability, call our exhibit Copenhagen Sustainable by Design. And during the first 5 weeks of our program, we really wanted to learn how and why Denmark was the leader in achieving sustainable goals and objectives. So as you can see on their website, they have developed action plans in conjunction with the United Nations to achieve 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or they can also be called SDGs. And second to Finland, Denmark is a leading country that is on track to reach carbon neutrality by 2030. And so these Sustainable Development Goals were created in 2015 to give all participating countries an action plan to reduce their carbon footprint and function with renewable resources. Denmark currently stands in maintaining 9 of the 17 goals. And even though it's only 9 out of 17, as you can see highlighted, they still conduct new plans today so that way they will be carbon neutral by 2030. And like many concerned about climate change nowadays, WCU, or Westchester University, currently has its own action plan to work towards carbon neutrality by 2030. And to raise our awareness, we were able to calculate our own carbon footprint and how the environment is affected by it. We found that after all of us decided to figure out what our carbon footprint was, that it was very large and it wasn't very sustainable for the earth. And so what happens now? We decided to pledge a paradigm shift, and this paradigm shift will change one aspect of our lives while we are abroad. So for me, I decided to carry reusable bags so that way we had access to not using plastic while we were having our groceries abroad. And I know another student was able to reuse cloth napkins so we didn't have to dispose of plastic ones. And then with this basis of research, we were able to prepare our exhibition space before we were abroad. But one of the challenges that we faced was the long, narrow shape of our gallery. And then you can see pictured here that we did have large windows and tall wall space. And so how can we maximize this space? So we decided to do this with the exploration of thematic zones. This helps showcase Danish culture and design and how this would impact current sustainable resources that are available to the Danish community. Each zone would be separated with floor-to-ceiling banners and also wall banners that add hierarchy to each subzone that we have. And then once these zones were mapped out, we can then go on our abroad experience to delve deeper into these topics. So in the next 3 weeks, while we were away in Copenhagen, we were able to learn about the culture and how it affects design. Our housing location was actually right in the heart of Copenhagen, so it gave us easy access to their public transportation when we were traveling outside of Copenhagen to learn about design and sustainability. So we were able to visit castles and museums to really understand how design evolved from a detail-oriented elegance to the concept of a less is more minimalist approach. And we had the opportunity to do a walking tour around Copenhagen, learning about the modernization of architecture, where we learned that the designer Arne Jacobsen was kind of the birth of this type of design. So he pushed the foundations of functional design, and with his minimalist approach, we were able to see the creation of the SAS Hotel. And with pushing these aesthetic boundaries, we can now see it in modern architecture today. And it really helped to see that design doesn't have to just be in a 4-walled space. You can really use the environment as your canvas, which led us to the adventure of the Lost Giants. So native artist Thomas Danville wanted to push the boundaries of museum work by creating a scavenger hunt around Copenhagen to visit 6 of his lost giants. And we also had the opportunity to travel each of these sculptures on bikes, and he does use a lot of reusable wood and stuff as well. And so transportation in Copenhagen is very important with the use of bicycling. They have highways, and it's almost like they have specific roads designated to bicycles. And so we were able to complete a 3-hour green bike tour to learn about Denmark's sustainable efforts, such as biofication, green roofs, and trash energy. We also learned about different types of reusable energy sources, so water, solar, and waste. And pictured here is actually a waste incinerator that takes waste and filters it out into the air in a sustainable manner. And the interesting part about how this was designed for the community, because it's in the center of Copenhagen, they created a ski slope on top of it, so that way, even though they're still importing waste from all other countries to create sustainable energy, the community can interact with it in a positive manner by going skiing on the weekend or something. And these experiences helped us envision the exhibit. By using these thematic zones to tell the story of sustainability, we really got an understanding of how design was influenced from this. And then once we were back at the university in our final week, we then created an interactive exhibit so viewers can be immersed in Denmark's culture and design and learn more about sustainability in Denmark as well as on our own campus. So we wanted to use simple Danish aesthetic to provide clear messaging about sustainability and design. So when we were branding our exhibit, we wanted to create strong hierarchy to influence the simplicity that we saw in Danish design. And with Denmark's flag and how passionate they are about being in Denmark, the community, we wanted to use red and white accents throughout the branding for each zone. And it was interesting because learning about Carlea and how your project talks about the language barrier between Chinese and English. They also do that in Denmark as well. So they provided text panels in English and their native language, which is Danish. And so we wanted to showcase that treatment in our exhibit because of how universal the English language is, that it's able to break those barriers across all the countries. So that way you'll see ours is more predominantly in English, but we do offer the Danish text as well. And another takeaway that from our exhibit is how the viewer can interact with the exhibit to let them be a part of our broad experiences. And to truly be immersed in the Denmark experience, we provided illustrated Copenhagen skylines of main landmarks that give meaning to all the interactives that we placed in our exhibit. So we had one of our students refurbish an old bicycle that is actually, you can ride it. It's semi-functional, so it just rides in place. But while we were abroad, we were able to take GoPro footage of us biking around Copenhagen, so that way you could experience that alongside of us. And in keeping in the theme of sustainability and reusing materials, we brought in the use of cardboard to form as a functional chair that viewers could sit on, and it was representative of Denmark's minimalist chair design. And to finally showcase our own adventures, we created a slideshow of all of our photos looped to the grid layout of our logo. And eventually, if you watched it enough, because it played in different times, the logo would be matched up with what you see on this slide. Then finally, we wanted to have the sustainability methods go past our exhibit, so we created an exit interactive that viewers could take with them. So presented here, there's a bunch of buttons that have different paradigm shifts that the community could want to possess. So first, they can actually take the ecological footprint quiz that we took at the beginning of our experience. And then from that, decide which pledge that they wanted to do past our exhibition. And then that created a little infographic so to understand how WC's community wants to be sustainable. And then we also provided reusable straws that could be purchased, and then those proceeds were donated to Westchester University's resource pantry. And then for my takeaway and my contribution to this exhibit, I decided to create an animated infographic about Danish culture because they always promote the happiness of Denmark. And then I was able to learn how to tell a dynamic, heartfelt story through motion graphics and typography. I was also increased my skills in animated type. I did have limited resources, so I was required to use stock videos, but I learned about the required steps necessary to transition film segments and incorporate my own narration and how animation can help elevate that storyline. So thank you so much.